My name is Godfred once again. Just to quickly highlight on some few things concerning using the appropriate cargo-worthy trucks for our export produce. Okay, so just a brief introduction of Damco Logistics. I believe most of you have heard Damco now Maersk. We have liaised with Maersk Ghana, Maersk Logistics. So Damco is now fully Maersk. We are a customs house broker, and then what we try to do is to reduce or take away the complexities in logistics, that is in freight forwarding, and offer the right to freight forwarding services to enable our customers' businesses to grow. So I would just want to quickly jump to the tracking aspect. Okay, so basically what my brother just said from Air Ghana, we are looking at tracking some of these goods from the factories to the airport. But what we also need to consider is the kind of goods that we are transporting. We need to identify the right trucks to use, the right logistics to use. It's very imperative, because most of the time, just as my father was saying, you find trucks that are being used, and you open these trucks, you find out that there are a lot of insects in these trucks, and by the time the cargo is being moved from the factory to the port, some of these insects move directly onto these items that is being shipped. So we need to identify the kind of trucks that we use, the kind of goods that we are exporting, and the right trucks to use. Most of the time too, you find out that the trucks that are being used, they are leakages. Some of them use container trucks, and these trucks have leakages on them. These trucks have leakages. Some of them are rusted, and then you find out that when it rains, we have water going into the items, and then they are being sent to the warehouse for storage and prepared for export. By the time it gets to destination, these products have been destroyed, or to some extent cannot be used. And we have, as he said, we have various regulations that must be adhered to. If not, these cargoes are being rejected. So we have to identify all these things. We also need to identify the kind of the registration of the vehicles. Some of these vehicles that moves on our roads are not in good conditions. They are in very deplorable conditions. So if we want to use the right trucks, then we need to take note of the fact that these trucks has been properly registered, and then they are in the right position. If they are not in the right position, we stand a chance of affecting the customer. At Maersk, we are very customer centric. We pay attention to what the customer needs. Before we bring a customer on board, we liaise with them. We do what we call the customer onboarding, for them to understand what their needs are, what they want, the kind of goods that they are shipping, and what the kind of trucks that they need to use from the factory to the port. So it is very necessary. For perishable goods, we know that they deteriorate over time. So once you know that they deteriorate over time, you have to consider that the trucks that you are using, for the kind of goods that you are using, the temperature control is very important. The humidity in the truck is very important. Imagine you have a good that you pick from the factory, and then on your way, between the time it leaves the factory to the time it gets to the port, the traffic, the temperature in the vehicle, you are not using the appropriate truck, you are not using the reefer truck, and these goods must be stored in the right condition. It must be stored under the right temperatures. By the time you get to the port, the goods have been moved into a deplorable state. But quite unfortunately, some of these agents are unable to see the state of this good, because they are packaged, and they are not able to see the state of the goods. So once it gets to the port, all they have to do is to just repackage it because they want their job to be done. As soon as it's done, they move it to the storage units where it will be kept and prepared for departure. So it is very important that as soon as you have a lead to pick up a cargo, you need to identify that the person or the cargo handler or the tracker who is going to pick up the produce knows the requirements, knows what is needed to be able to track these goods securely to the right place. So considering all these things, it's very, very important to identify the right tracks to use, the cargo-worthy track. Sometimes on the motorway, you realize that some of these tracks have been broken down. The question is, before the track moved from its location to the factory to pick up the goods, were there any measures put in place by the agent or by the one who is providing the service, that is we the declarant? Was there any measures that were put in place? As agents or as service providers, we need to ensure that whenever we bring in a tracker on board, we need to take them through certain trainings for them to understand the logistics business very well and what it means to move a cargo from point A to point B, considering the kind of cargo that is being moved. So number one, we look at what the registration of the vehicle. Number two, we look at the state of the vehicle that is going to pick up the cargo. Number three, we bring the trackers on board. We train them for them to understand the kind of goods they are going to pick, and then the right track to use. You cannot use a normal temperature track, which is not a reefer track, to pick up a cargo that requires a particular temperature. That is a cold temperature. So it is very important. One of the things we've also identified is that when the cargoes are moved to the warehouse or the storage units, we liaise with the airlines, because one of the things I've realized is that the airlines have put in measures that are able to keep the kind of cargo that is being exported under certain temperatures. That is being kept so that it prevents the cargo from deteriorating, from being in the deplorable state. When these measures are not put in place, when it gets to the destination, it gets affected. So these are some of the food products that are perishable and they need to be protected and placed in the right temperatures. We have the frozen foods, produce, we have cakes, we have vaccines, medications, just like my brother posted first, the penicillin and stuff. We have chemicals, engineered materials, antiques, perfume, cosmetics, tobacco products. Last year we had an issue where a client wanted his cargo to be tracked. That was a tobacco product, cigarettes, from Tema to KIA, and this was handled by a different agent. Unfortunately for them, they were in a season where we were in a rainy season, and the right track should have been used. Unfortunately, they used an open track and they decided to use a tarpaulin to cover it. So when they got to the motorway, the rain started. So you can presume what happened to the cargo. Water entered into the cargo, and unfortunately they didn't use the right packaging material. It was packaged in boxes. So imagine if the packaging was done right and the right tracks were used, then it means that even though we had the rains coming in, if there are even leakages on the track, the package is even secured. But we need to also ensure that the right track is used so that it prevents any issue from coming, and also prevent costs, we incurring costs for the customer. So we go to the various documentation that is required. So just as I said earlier on, we need to be able to identify the kind of goods that is being moved from the factory to the port to be exported. We need to identify the right temperatures at which each product must be kept to stay fresh. We need to identify the shelf life of each product, and this we must be able to communicate to the customer It's very imperative, and we need to also communicate to the tracker. Basis this, they will know the type of tracks to use. The second thing is the type of packaging. Most of the time, the full packaging is a reliable one. With this client that I spoke about early on with regards to the tobacco, we had a chance of bringing the customer on board, and we had Air Ghana give us the right procedure to be able to preserve this cargo. And fortunately for us, when this same customer came on board, we identified that it was in the season where, you know, the rains were at its peak. So we used the right procedure. Unfortunately, at the warehouse there were some leakages. If it wasn't for the right packaging, we would have also encountered the same challenge. So the packaging is very important, even before it is loaded into the truck. Even before it's loaded to the truck. And the type of truck to employ for conveying to port. The truck that you use must be disinfected. If there has to be any form of fumigation, it must be done right. There shouldn't be any leakages in the truck. The truck must be registered so that we prevent any issue on the road with the authorities that ensure that the right trucks are in the right state and move on the roads. To prevent this, we also ensure that when these cargoes are moving, it gets to the destination, that is the port, on time. Once you have all these measures that are put in place, you have the right tracks, then you can easily convey your products from the factory to the port without having any issues. So it is very, very important to use the right tracks in their right state. If not, we will continually have these issues and we will always incur cost for the customer. So at this point, I would like to end here. And once we are able to give this customer these services, providing the right tracks, the right worthy tracks, we move all the way with the customer. Thank you very much.